Super Bowl champion CJ Gardner Johnson, once again a free agent after he was released on Tuesday by the Houston Texans. Texans and the Eagles worked out a trade in the offseason, sending CJ Gardner Johnson to Houston for former 2022 first-round pick Kenyon Green, who hasn't panned out for Philly at all. Initially that trade goes down, you think, okay, well, the Eagles just got their right guard replacement and their offensive line set, and then he just sucked. Kenyon Green has been on the practice squad, off the practice squad, elevated for depth purposes, but let's be real, it's probably not going to happen here in Philly for him. And it clearly didn't work out in Houston for CJ Gardner Johnson. Now the question, if you're the Eagles, do you bring him back? I'm going to be real with you guys. I love CJ Gardner Johnson. You can't make me not love this guy. And I think a lot of Eagles fans initially will see this release and they'll try to disparage what CJ Gardner Johnson meant to the Eagles last year. They'll try to downplay his impact on the field, both with his play and with his mouth. And that's fine. CJ Gardner Johnson's going to rub people the wrong way, not just teammates, but fans as well. Obviously, everybody remembers in Philly when he went to Detroit after his first go-around in Philly, and he pissed off a lot of people by saying that the Detroit Lions were as good, if not better, than the Eagles, who just went to the Super Bowl. I will also remind you, and this is just a coincidence, but the next season without CJ Gardner Johnson, they were terrible, and then they bring CJ Gardner Johnson back, and they go to the Super Bowl. Again, I think it's coincidence, but I looked at CJ Gardner Johnson as a player that truly got Philly. He was the embodiment of Philadelphia. He talked shit. He backed it up when he was with the Eagles. I can't talk about with Houston, but when he was with the Eagles, he backed it up. He was a really, really good, strong player for this squad. But, look, his mouth got him in trouble. And he's gone on podcasts before talking about why exactly he thinks he got traded from Philly. Eagles saying they couldn't pay everybody. It was a money situation. CJ Gardner Johnson saying, no, I think it was more of a Vic Fangio situation. He didn't really jive with me. Whatever. So, because of that reason, I don't think they will bring him back. But for everybody out there who initially sees this video and they just throw it to the wayside and no, they're not. Why would we bring him back? The backup safety right now, and there's only one for both strong and free, the backup safety is Sidney Brown. Can you improve on Sidney Brown? It is that simple. Is CJ Gardner Johnson an improvement from Sidney Brown? The answer is yes. Let's not make Sidney Brown out to be more than he is. He was a third-round pick. He's fine. If you throw him in there in a pinch, okay. But would you rather have CJ Gardner Johnson, a proven starter in this league, or Sidney Brown, who has been depth up until this point? The guy that you would look at going into a season and go, hey, can he take that starting safety spot? Oh, no, he can't. Because it ends up being Reed Blankenship again. It ends up being Andrew Makuba as your starting safeties. Obviously, Makuba was drafted in the second round, so you're not going to sit that guy too long. But when you're looking at a depth situation and a veteran bringing him in, yeah, I'm bringing CJ Gardner Johnson in. The reasons why I don't think it's going to happen is the Vic Fangio thing. I do believe that. I believe CJ Gardner Johnson when he says, yeah, it wasn't money. That was the excuse they gave me. It was the fact that the old coach wasn't really liking to how I did things. I buy that 100% because when the CJ Gardner Johnson trade happened, I was like, well, why the hell are they trading CJ Gardner Johnson for? They just signed him to a 3-year deal. But the other reason why I don't think that they would do it is because he's already got his ring. He's already won. And now you're after one thing as a player probably, and that's money. Well, how do you get the most money? Well, in his situation, being released 3 games into the season, the stock is very low. At this point, you've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that couldn't wait to get rid of CJ Gardner Johnson. If you're a hockey fan out there, CJ Gardner Johnson's basically the equivalent of Tony D'Angelo. He's got talent for sure, but you've got organizations who are just lining up to go would you please take him off our hands because we can't do this anymore. And I think it's up to CJ Gardner Johnson to look himself in the mirror and realize do I want to have probably a long sustained NFL career, or do I want to probably cut my career 3 to 5 years short because I'm just kind of an asshole. But that's worth mentioning is the fact that there are teams out there that were just look, we're good, okay? The juice ain't worth the squeeze. And the Eagles, by the way, being one of those teams, not just once, but twice. So with CJ Gardner Johnson, with his stock being low at this point, with the Texans trading for him, with him starting and playing poorly, mind you, he wasn't good in Houston, he's probably looking to redeem himself, and by doing so, he's going to be looking for a starting spot. The Eagles can't give him that. They're going to stick with Andrew Makuba. So if they bring CJ Gardner Johnson in, it would only be in a depth role. Whereas if CJ Gardner Johnson wants to start, there are plenty of teams that will look for an upgrade, that will be a young developmental squad who needs a veteran who won a Super Bowl last year, and they're going to look to bring him in to mentor the younger group. The Eagles are a different breed, though. They're not that. They're looking to win again. I think you can win with CJ Gardner Johnson. I think you bring him back into this Vic Fangio system and you'll see him play and regain his form. I'm confident of that. But what I'm not confident is that if you bring CJ Gardner Johnson in, he's starting. And because of that, he's probably not going to be looking to sign here unless, and I think this is the only way it happens, unless really all 31 other teams aren't all that interested. You know, I expect CJ Gardner Johnson to go to, you know, a Jacksonville, to go to, like a Seattle, like an Oakland, you know, like one of those teams where you just look at and you go, okay, maybe they're good. You know, Seattle's good. Are they really going to win anything? You know, there might be a GM out there who goes, we're good. We can improve. We can possibly sneak into the playoffs or win our division and all that. Or you've got the teams, as I said, like a Carolina, who's probably not contending for anything. They would look to bring him in. I would 100%. Like if he wants to return, by all means. As I said, when I think about the phrase of like he got that dog in him, CJ Gardner Johnson got that dog in him. Did he rub people the wrong way? 100%. Does he need to look inward on that? Yeah, probably. Will it happen? Probably not. But I thought what he brought to the table, his just mentality, his attitude, I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. Granted, I didn't have to deal with it every day. I wasn't in the locker room. But what I saw on the field, I loved. I couldn't get enough of. I was disappointed when they let him go. I would absolutely bring him back. What would you guys do out there? Let me know in the comment section. Would you bring him back if he was willing to come back? Or are you good? I'm all right. Let him go somewhere else. We got our team. Please subscribe to the channel. That is important. Subscribing is cool. People are doing it. People are like, I want to be cool. I'm subscribing. You should too. That is called peer pressure. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. That's fine too. You know, it's a free country. I am going to go watch the Phillies now.